That's the difference right there between foreigners and Americans. That guy was from India. He owned a small convenience store working in India. He's out there painting the front of the building by himself with a roller and like $10 worth of Walmart paint. In between customers, the guy is out there painting the front of his own building to look better than all the other buildings. And it looks nice. Now, an American would hire someone for $58 an hour, a professional painter, to come and do the whole thing. It would take a week. It would be inconvenience to the customer. It would cost about $4,800. You would get an insurance guarantee with it for 5 to 10 years. But the guy from India puts all that money in his pocket. I'm just saying. We Americans have become lazy. The guy goes out there with a $5 roller, a stick with some duct tape, and $10 worth of Walmart paint, and his place looks just as good as any other convenience store in town. And he's going to put that $4,000 in his pocket. In fact, he's going to hire his wife and his nephew or his cousin, and they're going to run the whole store by themselves, 24 hours a day. But the American store, like the 7-Eleven, has to hire, 9 people, $17 an hour, and they still don't show up to work. I'm just saying, the only reason I'm talking about it is because the guy's out there, and he turned around and waved at me and smiled, and I waved back. I waved, telling him I'm impressed. If you own a store, you should paint it yourself. If you own a house, you should paint it yourself. Whatever you own, you should take care of. Maintenance yourself. Now, you can't do that with an automobile or some plumbing or some electricity or whatever, but how did my grandpa survive in the early 1930s, 40s, and 50s without ever getting anyone else to help him? How did he survive that whole era of his whole life doing everything on his own? The reason they did that is because they did not have money to pay someone else. So the guy from India comes over here, and in 10 years, he owns 5 stores, and he's worth $4 million in 10 years. The American starts a business that makes $150,000 a year, and the first thing they do is go buy a $500,000 house, putting them in debt for the next 25 years. But the guy from India lives in the storeroom, and you think I'm making this up, go check it out. He lives in the back storeroom with his family, homeschools them. His children speak 3 different languages. And this is the same with China, people from China who come here, Indonesia, a few Russians come here. People from South America come here. Within 10 years, they got $100,000 in the bank. And they speak 4 languages, and their children went to all the free college schools and colleges. But, see, in India, well, let me say, they have a saying in Mexico. Mexicans buy a house and their whole family stays around the house and in the front yard and get a garden and all that. Americans buy a house and they never come home. They're always gone and they only sleep in the house. So Mexicans are like, why did you buy a house? You should have just got an apartment. That's why when most Mexicans come to America, they don't buy a house. because they're going to be working so much. They just get an apartment with like 5 guys in there, and they're all making like $1,000 a week. But they're working 60 hours a week. But the guy from India says, I will be poor for 10 years, and then I will be a multimillionaire. If an American goes to India, the reverse, the American's like, oh, I'm not going to work. I'm on vacation. You see, because in America, we were raised spoiled. We expect everything. In India, they were raised dirt poor on the ground. So they've never seen an opportunity like America before. So they come here and they take advantage of every dime you can make here. Now imagine a guy from India coming here and people back home go, well, what do you sell the Americans? What kind of stuff do they buy? Candy, sugar, beer, cigarettes, energy drinks, and lottery tickets. And the people back in India think, oh, they must all be multimillionaires because they got so much money to waste all the time. And the guy has to tell them, no. Because they're wasting all their money, none of them have any money. They're all in debt or poor or on welfare. And the people back in India are like, what? Why don't they just work? Why don't they just work more and get a lot of money? And the guy who owns a convenience store says, I wonder the same thing myself. Half of Americans don't even have a job. So it's easy for the guy from India or whatever country you want to pick to come over here, get a loan from someone in India for like $50,000. He comes over, gets a convenience store, works his butt off for 2 years, buys a second convenience store, 2 more years. Every 2 years he buys a convenience store. In 10 years he's a multi-millionaire. And they usually come over here when they're about 30 years old. So by the time they're 40, 45 years old, they're multi-millionaires. Selling Americans lottery tickets, cigarettes, alcohol, energy drinks, and sugar candies, donuts, whatever. And that's why Americans are broke. And you see, next time you see one of those guys from India at one of these little stores, maybe you'll have a whole different outlook on the guy. That's why he's always behind the counter smiling. Because he went from India making $3,000 a year to America making $300,000 a year within 10 years. And you live in America. You live here. And you won't do it. Well, I'm not going to work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for 10 years because I got to go ride my ATV. I got to sit in my camper. I got to go in my truck camper. I got to remodel the kitchen in my house. Let me leave you with a saying from Warren Buffett, one of the richest men to ever live on planet Earth. He would have gave King Solomon a run for his money. Warren Buffett said, Americans, they all want to be rich. He was talking about the stock market. You can become rich in 20 years in the stock market. So Warren Buffett said, every American I know wants to be rich, but they don't want to be rich slowly. They want their riches right now, in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. They don't want to wait to become rich like was required in the old days. All Americans want to be rich, but they don't want to be rich slowly. And that says a lot about Americans right there. I got $10,000 to invest. I want to make $10,000 interest by the end of this year. How do I do that? And Warren Buffett would tell you, you invest the $10,000 and in 5 years you'll have $20,000. That's how it works. And your money stays safe and secure. Or you invest the $10,000 into yourself and your own abilities, and then you go out and you can make $20,000 or $30,000 extra a year in your own small business now. Invest the money into yourself. And then over 10 years, you become rich, like the guy in India. Over 10 years, America makes him a very wealthy young man. Over 30 years, America makes Americans very poor. Because you can't stop borrowing money. You're never going to get ahead until you get more money and start getting the money to work for you. It won't work. It will never work. It's impossible. But you know, this is Labor Day weekend. So just look around. What does the average American want on Labor Day weekend? Toys, play, and time off. Toys, play, and time off. Toys, play, and time off. But it's a mindset. The guy from India back there, he never grew up with Labor Day. He doesn't care about Labor Day. He could care less about Labor Day. He doesn't care one way or another. He's out there painting his business on Labor Day. And that's why in 10 years, 15 years, he's going to be a multimillionaire. And in 10 or 15 years, you're only going to have half your house paid off, and that's it. You're only going to have half your house paid off. And you're still going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Because you're taking all your money and you're spending it on stuff you want. And that's why we're all getting fatter and dumber. And uneducated and uninformed. The average American couldn't even tell you how government works today. The average American couldn't even tell you how to invest money. The average American doesn't know any of these things. The average American couldn't tell you how to buy a house for cash.